Hey, I got a good one today. It's really going to piss some people off because I'm going to sit here and I am going to say emphatically that Macs are better than PCs. I know you've heard the argument before. This time I'm talking specifically about pro audio applications. And before you get out your pitchforks, before you turn it off because you're a PC user and a happy PC user, hear me out. Hear out my argument. So, as you probably already know, Mac, PC, whatever, they're both made up of components from a bunch of different manufacturers. Like Texas Instruments is a big supplier of chips, Ricoh, Via. Those are all chip manufacturers, and that's just one component. There can be hundreds of different components built into any one computer. When you build your own, you're seeking out what you think are the best components, or at least the best deals on the components that you need to build that computer. Dell does the same thing. HP does the same thing. They're shopping to build this computer to a certain price point to reach a certain customer. Apple tends to stick with a very narrow vein of these manufacturers and use them across their entire line. The reason that's important has nothing to do with Apple being better or worse or PCs being better or worse. It has everything to do with how well tested they are. So the reason that people believe that Apple is a more stable platform in pro audio is because it is. It's more stable because it's better tested. An Apple product is easily accessible to the manufacturer of something like your audio interface, whether it's RME or Audient or Universal Audio, Focusrite, Steinberg. They all make great interfaces, and they all are more stable and more consistent across a platform, across the Apple platform, than they are on PCs, and that's because they can't test every PC out there. They can't even test 1% of the PC configurations out there. So the manufacturer makes their products, say Focusrite. They make their Scarlett interface, and they test it on some PCs, but it's their configuration of PC. It's something they have probably built, or maybe they've bought it off the shelf, but that's what they have it to test with. With Apple, what they have to test with is going to be really similar in nature and construction to the same Apple that you would buy. So they're able to test on both the operating system and the hardware. So if there's a problem when they're testing with Apple hardware, they're able to nip it in the bud right there and fix that. With PC, they can't do that until they start getting feedback from people about their specific configurations. And so PC is initially going to be more buggy with any new product. It's just an inherent thing. As it goes along, they can correct some of those things, but they're never going to be able to cover all of these build scenarios that you may have. So that's the first thing. Apple is just simply a better tested product, so it runs better out of the box. PCs also, Windows, because it does so many things and it does them all very well, it doesn't really do any one perfectly. And so Windows Audio, it's got some problems. You have to work around it. We use ASIO drivers to circumvent Windows Audio system, and the operating system in general, it's got a lot of stuff going on that you have to shut off and you have to really optimize. Apple, it's got a few things you can optimize, but not a ton. It's pretty well ready to go out of the box, and it's going to work, and it's going to be well tested. And if there is a problem, then when you reach out to the manufacturer for their tech support, if they hear that you're on an Apple, they're going to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief because they already know what components are going on. They know what's happening under the hood of your machine to some degree, and they can narrow down the problem a lot quicker. And maybe it is something they overlooked in testing, but if they overlooked it in testing, it's not affecting you, it's affecting many people. So it becomes a higher priority for them to correct it. Whereas with a PC, it may be just you. It may be your build. It may be your specific machine. And that's going to, one person is going to take a much lower priority than dozens or hundreds or thousands of people who are using a similar Apple configuration. So the testing makes Apple a better product for pro audio. As far as an all-around better product, I'm a PC guy. I just am. I think the operating system is better. I like PCs. I like working on them. I like building them. But specifically for pro audio, in my 20-something years of experience, I've had way better experiences with Apple products than I have PCs, even the ones I built myself. Another thing that I'm going to touch on just very briefly is the cost. People say PCs are cheaper, PCs are cheaper, PCs are cheaper. Apple's so expensive. It's not really true. I know it seems that way. If you look at the components that are used in building an Apple computer and buy those same components for your own Windows build, you're going to end up spending roughly the same amount. You might spend a few extra dollars for a nice Apple case. It's not going to amount to much. So there isn't a dramatic price difference like people think there is. PCs, of course, can be built much cheaper than some Apple products, and that's true. But you don't want to use those for pro audio. You want to use a really good, stable machine, and you may be able to build a stable, good machine for less money than an Apple. I'm not saying that you can't. What I'm saying is, for the same components, component for component, matched wherever you can, they're going to cost about the same amount. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other when it comes to price, unless price is a huge consideration for you and you're really trying to build something cheaper and you don't mind getting your hands a little dirty during the build and doing some tweaking and some modifications to make it work for you, in which case PC is a fine option. Now, some people say, I don't like the Mac operating system. It's fair enough. My favorite PC that I've ever worked on was a Mac with Windows loaded onto it. With Boot Camp, that's always an option. You get the hardware testing and stability of an Apple product with the interface that you prefer. And I have no problem with that. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I don't think the Apple operating system is inherently better, but I do think the components are better tested. And that's a good reason to really give Apple consideration, especially if you're someone who, doesn't want to tweak it, doesn't want to sit and mess with it, doesn't want to optimize it, doesn't want to get in and mess with the BIOS and stuff like that. Apple works well off the shelf. So I'm saying it, judgment made. Apple is a better choice for pro audio. So PC users, go out and enjoy your PC, and you can continue to think I'm full of it, and that's fine. But you can't argue with the fact that Apple products are better tested.